Friendly hello from me as well. Thanks very much for the kind introduction. My name is Sebastian Authenrieth, and I am so delighted to be working as a lecturer again at this EMS symposium. Those of you who actually watched last year's symposium will be surprised to see the same title, but the content will be different. New year, new FIBO, you see similar people again, but how do I use my 20 minutes to give something really new to people who attended last year's symposium? And I thought about my clients. It's the same thing. I only see them for 20 minutes, then the session is over, and I see them again the following week for 20 minutes. And this is why I put some thought to it, and therefore broke my top title down into subtitles. First of all, I would like to look back to 2017 with all of the titles I covered last year, and I will focus on item number 7, the minimally effective dose. And this will be my focal theme for the next 20 minutes. At the EMS symposium.com, you can find last year's presentation. So for all of you who were not here, but if you were not here last year, you will be able to understand it without listening to me last year. Well, let's get going then. The minimally effective dose. What do I mean by this? The dose is basically the art of the personal trainer. And first of all, I have to look at my subject. Who's my customer? You can draw a parallel to my taste buds. When you say that a dish is salty, when you actually prepare a dish for 10 people and you want to use salt, each one of your guests will actually feel and taste differently. And it's the same thing for training. For the 20 minutes, I've brought along 3 types of customers for my presentation. First of all, an athlete, a competitive athlete who's studying at the same time. In the middle, an obese truck driver, and last but not least, a customer with back pain, a businessman. So these are the 3 main target groups that can be extremely successful with EMS training. Without actually categorizing, without any prejudices, we want to look at the 3 target groups and what they expect from me as a personal trainer. You could imagine that the athlete wants to be faster, higher, or better, or maybe she just wants to retain the same level for another year. The truck driver, first and foremost, doesn't like exercise at all. He's obese, and therefore the truck driver dislikes exercise. But he has probably learned that he should change his looks because of his surroundings, and maybe he has already felt the first negative side effects and the quality of life. He feels inside his body, well, I can't move that well anymore. And our back pain subject wants to get rid of his or her pain because the nerves, they nerve him. So more quality of life through less pain. So these are the subcategories: muscle buildup, burning fat, and feeling better. So to inspire you, ponder on it. All 3 of these customers basically want the same thing. They want to build up muscles, they want to burn fat, and they want to feel all right. The sports person probably also wants to burn some fat, which helps her, and she wants to win, which makes her feel better. The back pain customer will not get rid of his pain without building muscle. And to lose fat and burn fat, you can actually build up muscles. This is important to burn calories. And at the end of the day, this truck driver will also feel better. It's always a mix of all three elements, although your customers may not realize from the outset. Our key to achieve all of these three targets is the training, and this is why I'm the trainer. I want to inspire my customers by remembering my first semester at university, and this is the definition of training, because unfortunately this ranks very low in EMS training. When we speak of training, then we always speak of a planned, targeted, and systematic process for performance enhancement. If I don't plan, if I don't have a system, then this is not a training. It's sports, but not a training. So every trainer should question himself, am I aware of my customers' objectives? Do I approach it with a plan, with a structure to make this person achieve his or her aim? Knowing this, we can talk about the dose. So how salty do I want my food? How intense do I want my training? And again, as a dose in training, you could say the stress extent that actually affects the human body could be related or referred to as the dose. The higher, the more intense, the longer the training, the higher the dose. This should always be effective. If I train too hard, too intensely, then the muscle does not build up, fat is not burned to the extent wanted, because only carbohydrates are burned, and the regeneration period is too long to have the next unit. With this definition, we're now taking the next step, looking at how the trainers can actually individually dose such trainings, because everyone thinks just plug in, upload the program, and it's the same for every customer, for the back pain, for the athlete, or for the obese person. But personal trainers have huge opportunities to actually cater to customers. The training time is the first parameter. Well, you all know that an EMS training should take 20 minutes. The training duration actually tells you when to load the program and when it's over. 20 minutes for everyone, for the majority of customers, and that is the current state of science, the ideal dose. Everyone starting with EMS twice a week for 20 minutes is unaware of the latest state of the art. The next parameter is the impulse break and the impulse time and the impulse break. But this also means, when we look at a graphic representation, 50% of training is time under electricity, and 50% of the time is not under electricity. So within 20 minutes, there is 10 minutes of under electricity. And if I double the training time, 80 to 4, then I have a completely different category. And the training time must, of course, change as well, downwards, in order to end up with the same dose. See how exciting this is when you just look at two parameters, because there's more parameters to this. In these 4 seconds of under electricity, there is a parameter called frequency. And when we work with 85 hertz as a frequency, in each second of the 4 seconds of time under electricity, the muscle gets 85 times the command of contracting. And it is a difference whether he gets this command 7 times or 150 times. And you can drill even deeper. Each individual frequency can be defined by the impulse width. Just imagine there are 85 individual commands. How long does each individual command last? This is the so-called impulse width. In normal EMS equipments, it can be defined up to 400 microseconds. So the standard, the default setting is 350. So this is one of the most interesting parameters when we talk about the intensity of EMS training, because everyone's talking about the frequency, but nobody talks about the impulse width. To show this as a diagram, just imagine you've got this hand under a sewing machine, and in the sewing machine you've got a needle. And now the question is, how long will the hand stay underneath the sewing machine, and how many times do we allow the needle to go up and down? For 4 seconds. And how often will the needle go up and down? This is the frequency. And now, how deep will the needle prick into my muscles? Like with the tattooing on the top dermis, or will it go deeper when I have an injection? And all of this makes EMS so exciting. And this is one of the reasons why I love to deal with EMS. Furthermore, there is the impulse strength, which is adjusted by the dials. The higher, the less milliampere, and the thicker the needle gets. If I only prick in a very thin needle, or the question is whether I prick in a big needle, a thick needle. Again, a difference. You can also have a gradual ramp up for the 4 seconds, and we can actually have a difference between monopolar and bipolar, although for EMS trainings, only bipolar applications make sense. The monopolar applications would be therapeutic applications. Taken this together in the strength program looks like this. This is the 3 stress parameters. When we want to do a cardio training, then the standard program would have 7 hertz with a permanent impulse. The body relax program would be at 50%, 1 second break, 1 second impulse, but we would go up to 100 hertz, but the needle wouldn't prick as deeply. We would only go 150 microseconds deep. And if you think that this is it, no, there's more to it. This is just the parameters of the EMS training. Let's look at social media, Facebook, to see what personal trainers do with their customers, outdoor exercises, dynamic jumping, or when they use heavy dumbbells. You have to add this to the parameters. And this is the movement intensity. And there's a big question mark because we don't have any studies for this. I just wanted to remind you of the various parameters. Then, how many sets do we do? How many repetitions do we do? How heavy is the weight? Do we work static or dynamically in the impulse phase? Do we work statically or dynamically in the impulse break? Do we just stand, or do we actually continue the exercises during the break? Does the trainer work with end contraction, manual resistance, or with negative repetitions, which would be intensification methods? And then all of a sudden, you can see this chart here. This is how complicated an EMS training gets. Now you have to ask yourselves, are you aware of all these parameters when you work with EMS? And do you vary them? Do you play around with them? Do you actually approach this with a plan, with a structure, with a system? And do you control it well enough? This is my expectation for any trainer. Not changing all of the parameters, no, but doing it with a structure. I recommend my customers to do this in the advanced stage, to change the EMS parameters. The real challenge is to play around with the bottom part. The effects are so positive with the standard programs. Don't do your own studies and play with parameters. Quite on the contrary, don't do that. If you have not taken a very close look at the parameters, don't change the EMS parameters. Trust the default settings. But if you've undergone training, then there are wonderful possibilities. Don't tell me as an EMS trainer that you feel bored. No way, impossible. Let's drill a little deeper. This battery of my pointer is slow. There's one parameter that we have not touched upon at all, and this is the frequency of training. And this is the last parameter. Do I EMS training once, twice, or 3 times a week? Look at your customer. And I have actually shown a weekly plan. Our student, our competitive athlete, has study times and training times. This is a real training plan of a top sports person who studies at the same time. And now the question is, if we exclude the EMS training, this person says, yes, I want to undergo an EMS training, and the PT doesn't ask, what do you do in terms of sports, and says, yes, I can do EMS training with you, and probably does this, does a trial training on Friday evening. How will your competition go the following day? Of course, she won't be able to perform because she's tired. And the injury potential even increases. It skyrockets. So the last training unit should be that day so that she can regenerate the night over. Because if I did it before the team training, well, I would increase her risk of injury. And why do I do it at the beginning of the week? Well, because she needs enough time to regenerate for the competition. Because if this training is too intensive, then the whole week is basically gone. This is what the week looks like for our truck driver. He sits in his truck, he's got his steering times, he's got his rest times, and there's no exercise whatsoever. And when I asked him, when would you enjoy your EMS training? None. So you have to motivate this person. With him, you have to check when it's possible. He's got enough time, no problem to plan it. But with our business guy, it's completely different. He is in a business, and the challenge is different from week to week. Here, he's got a spontaneous night shift, and the only time of the day I can get them is in the morning, because he knows I have my first appointment at 9, and there won't be anyone at 8. But at night, his days are endless, and he is the person to do sports in the morning, because he's told me that he's boxing one day and running a second day. So I would actually schedule the EMS unit for Thursday morning. If he's advanced and he's undergone training for half a year or 1 year and wants a second training, then I would actually schedule it for Monday evening, because I stand a chance there, and I can probably coach him before his night shift to get his brains free. This can work out. It does not necessarily have to. Just to show you how interesting scheduling can be. The parameters. All of the parameters I showed you, taken together, are called a load normative or a load schedule. And if you change one parameter, it will affect all of the other parameters. The risk about EMS training is that the customers can't get direct feedback from their bodies. The body says, I feel great after the EMS training, because this means you have to trust science and cannot use the customer's feedback. If you change one parameter, this will affect all of the schedule, the load schedule. I hope I was able to give you an insight into the EMS world and inspire you and widen your horizon about EMS. I am a lecturer at the Glucker Kolleg. Since 2010, I've been the head of EMS training. I'm the head of education for Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. We actually offer 2 days level 1 training, and I would like to invite you to undergo this. If you have any other questions, I will be available for another 10 minutes at the Speakers Lounge. And if not, EMS training is a great thing and can actually challenge you. Accept this challenge, study it, regardless of whether you're new to the industry or whether you've worked in it for years. There are always new things to learn. I would like to see you again and enjoy the rest of the day at the exhibition.